week one of the NFL was supposed to give us answers, but instead it may have given us more questions for some teams. And for that, we go to the great Michael Lombardi and step into my office.
The appointments are lined up.
You waiting for somebody in there?
Got an appointment.
And it's not about what you want to hear, but what you need to hear.
It's not personal. It's strictly business. It's time you and me had a private talk, Winger. Step into my office.
It's Step Into My Office with Michael Lombardi. Mr. Lombardi, we'll see you now.
All right, so we're going to start in Cincinnati, the most shocking upset of the weekend. Bengals losing to the Patriots as a 7.5-point dog. Zac Taylor and the Bengals now 1-10 straight up in weeks 1 and 2, 0-5 in their last 5. Michael, what does Taylor need to do differently to prep for these openers?
Zach. You know, Zach, you're lucky you don't work for Al Davis, because you would not be employed after these opening games very long, because this is inexcusable. At what point do you sit in your office and say, I've learned my lesson? At what point do you sit there and say, maybe I should start zagging while I've been zigging all this time? Like, at what point do you realize you have to strategize how to play the game to win the game? You only get 17 of these. Like, they don't come around every week. You got to get one while you can. You're in the North. It's going to be competitive. Baltimore lost. Cleveland lost later in the day. You have the perfect opportunity. You know Pittsburgh was going to play as good as anybody. You needed to get off to a good start. You got to go to Kansas City next week. Who knows what happens there? So you got to build some momentum. But what do? You don't even try to get the lead. You come out there with a horrible game plan. You let the team that you know can only run the ball on you. You never make them play from behind to make Jacoby Brissett throw it 40 times. At what point do you sit down and say, maybe I should stop looking at my play sheet and stop looking at what I'm going to call next and manage the entire game, which is what Jerome Mayo did. He didn't let him get out of play. He didn't make Brissett throw the ball. They ran the ball down your throat. At some point, you can't continue to go like this. I know you think your team's going to improve in October, November, December, but look, you've got issues with Burrow's arm. There's no question. And you have issue with the physical toughness of your team. And if you don't fix that, you could kiss going to the playoffs goodbye.
Speaking of going into the playoffs, it's time for me to step into the office. And I'll step in as Notre Dame Fighting Irish head coach Marcus Freeman, whose team does not look good in terms of making it to the college football playoff. They opened up the season minus 170, and it only got even got easier to make the playoffs, or more. It was more juice for them to make the playoffs after beating Texas A&M to open the season. And then last weekend happened. A 16-14 loss to Northern Illinois, of all teams. And now if you look at this schedule as an independent school, your only chance is really an at-large bid, and the schedule is not favorable. Michael, what in the world can Marcus Freeman do to salvage the Fighting Irish season?
Well, I think you have to learn from your lesson, Marcus. I mean, the minute you walked off the field in Texas, in College Station, you had to know your challenge was not how do we play Northern Illinois. It was how do I get my team's attention to focus on Northern Illinois. And you did a horrible job of that. Because, look, they listened to all the press clippings. Everybody wanted to talk Notre Dame football's back. Riley Leonard's doing great. But the mark of a coach isn't about getting his team ready against another good team. The mark of a great coach is getting his team ready against a bad team, against a team that everybody thinks you need to beat. And you failed miserably in that. And you're going to have to rebound from it. And you're going to have to build some confidence back in your team. And you're going to have to sit there and figure out, why couldn't we block Northern Illinois? That's a real issue. Like, they dominated the line of scrimmage. Riley Leonard's got bruises all over his body. And I think the Notre Dame fan base is going to look for answers from you, because you can't play in these close games against lesser talent. Notre Dame invested in the NIL, which typically we wouldn't have thought would have happened. They spent a lot of money. The pressure's on you to get to that final 12 teams. And this kind of game here will set you back, and the alumni will lose confidence in you. You've got to figure out a way to get your team ready when there's an opponent that isn't as good as you, and make them play as if they're better.
It was Notre Dame's fourth loss to an unranked team under Marcus Freeman. And this is a pretty sobering stat as well. Marcus Freeman, 20-9 just 2 games into his 3rd season. But in the last 5 seasons under Brian Kelly, Notre Dame were 54-9. So same number of losses in half the amount of time. Sometimes the grass isn't always greener. And Giants certainly feeling that way after letting Saquon Barkley go, because now they're feeling some type of way with Daniel Jones. 2 costly interceptions in a loss to the Vikings. He's in the 2nd year of his 4-year, $160 million contract, being paid $40 million a year. How can he turn this around, Michael?
Well, I think, Daniel, you got to get some confidence somewhere, somehow. And starts off early in the game where you got to throw some completions, which they tried to get you yesterday to do against the Minnesota defense that had some. But typically, even when there were easy throws, you weren't making them. I don't know why that is, because I've seen you make some of these throws before, but your rhythm was way off. Your timing was way off. You're putting so much pressure. Look, it's not your fault they paid you $160 million for 4 years. That's John Mara and the New York Football Giants. That contract is on them, not on you. So what you try to do is try to figure out how you can best help the team win. I know you're trying to run the football with your legs. That hasn't worked as well. I know you're rusty. I know it's been late. You haven't played a lot. You need to come back. But I think next week against Washington, you got to start the game off with some throws, but you got to throw it down the field. Everybody in the National Football League knows you've never averaged over 7 yards per attempt in your career. They know this. So they just sitting there waiting on the short routes. They know you're going to check the ball down. You're not going to throw it down the field. And you're going to make mistakes. So you're going to have to get this game. There's no spacing in your offense. And the reason there's no spacing in your offense is because of you. You refuse to throw it down the field. You've never thrown it down the field. And until you do that, until you start completing passes over 20 yards, people are going to continue to play you this way. And you're going to have to find a way to get some confidence without a lot of evidence.
Yeah, going to need some confidence also for another quarterback in the NFL. This time, Carolina Panthers quarterback Bryce Young. Couldn't have started out any worse for Bryce Young. He started the game with an interception on his first pass. His second pass of the second half, also an interception. Overall, 13 of 30 for 161 yards in a blowout loss to the Saints, 47-10. Remember, the former number 1 overall pick had a disappointing rookie year as well, 2 of 15 for the Panthers. Where does Bryce Young improve, and how does he get over such a tough start to the season after coming off a bad season as well, Michael?
Well, I think, Bryce, you probably should have played in the preseason. I mean, you played in the 3rd preseason game, and Dave Canales said he saw enough. Well, clearly he didn't see enough. I mean, you need reps. You're rusty. You're not very good. And the only way you're going to get good is to play more. And you're going to need to play with more understanding of what you need to do offensively. Your first interception was just atrocious. I mean, I know there were people in your face, but look, you're 5'10". They drafted you. You're short. You're going to have to figure out a way to move around the pocket. But look, right now you're labeled a bust, and it's going to continue to go that way until you show the mental resolve to bounce back. And they've put all this money in the offensive line. Look, let's face it. It's not your fault they gave up 49 points or they allowed you to get behind 20-0 in the game. No one's going to win when you're down 20-0 at the end of the first quarter and you have to throw it every down. So put the game behind you and try to get better in one area if you can.
Yeah, Panthers were the worst team to bet against the spread last season. So far, looking like that trend will continue. Let's go to the Packers, though, and talk to head coach Matt LaFleur. The Packers lost the game in Friday Night Brazil, and they lost their franchise quarterback, Jordan Love, for up to 6 weeks with a sprained MCL. Next, they go to Malik Willis. Michael, how does LaFleur keep the team together?
Well, I mean, now this is going to be the biggest challenge, Matt. I know every Friday you get a haircut, but when you're sitting in that barber's chair and you're getting your beard trim and you look perfect for television, you might want to ask them, you're going to have to change how to play. Unless you go to the Zac Taylor school of head coaching where you're just going to continue to do what you did, whether Willis is in the game or whether Jordan Love's in the game, good luck with you. You'll turn the ball over 7 times by halftime. You're going to have to strategize a way to run the ball with Aaron Jones, play action pass, limit the amount of throws you make, try to get the ball to your outside receivers. But you and I both know Malik Willis is so inaccurate, it's going to be a challenge to do that. I would suggest to save your season, you better go sit there and get on an airplane and fly and go spend some time with Ryan Tannehill. That might be the only chance you have because Willis is not good enough. We've already seen enough of that. I think that's going to be a real challenge. This backup quarterback situation, you skirted last year with Sean Clifford. Love stayed healthy. Now this happens, and you could be picking in the top 5 if you don't fix it.
By the way, the Packers open the season with plus 220 odds to win their division, the shortest odds behind the Lions. They are now down to 6-1.
Thanks for watching, but don't let the betting insights end here. If you want an extra edge this football season, you can get a month of VSiN Pro right now, absolutely free. That means access to our betting insights, analysis, and tools like our betting splits at 0 cost to you. Click the link in the description to sign up.